Hello and welcome into Tokyo CB and welcome back to the channel here, and today we're going to be discussing, of course, the Neymar saga. And a lot of people have been saying, look, can you do a video and looking at potential players that we could bring in with the big money we'll receive from the Neymar deal? Can you have a look at maybe who will sign in the coming window? And that's what this video is about. And just to make it clear, Neymar is certainly not gone yet. He's not left the club. Absolutely nothing has been confirmed. So by no means do I want him to leave. If I had my preference, I'd want him to stay. But if he does leave, I think it's important that ourselves, and I think it's important the club as well, are already starting to look into replacements or alternatives, whatever you want to call it. They need to be looking at targets if he does leave, because we're going to have to move fast. We're going to have a lot of money, but don't forget, with that money, clubs might start putting their prices up, knowing that we've got this burning a hole in our pocket. So it's important that we're clever in the market, that we're very, very focused on the targets we need. We can't just go throwing our money around at random players. Everything we do needs to be calculated, collected, researched. The board need to know what they're doing with this money. That's so important. And it's very important also that, guys, in this video, the players that I'm mentioning are not direct replacements for Neymar. These players are players that we can buy with the money that we receive from Neymar, because in my opinion, it's going to be very, very difficult to get a like-for-like replacement, a direct replacement for Neymar in our team. The players that I'm going to mention are more players that we can bring in with the money we've got, and we can reinforce our squad and strengthen our squad with the money we get. So first on the list, and the one player that I would personally say we should definitely go for, and I actually believe the board will sign this guy, Ousmane Dembele. 20 years old, Borussia Dortmund player, had an outstanding season last campaign, and I really think that he could come into our team. We've discussed him earlier on this summer. He could come into our team and really do well. He suits our style of play. He understands the game. He's very good at such a young age. He's very talented. He's got a lot of potential. He seems like his head is in the right place. He seems very professional in the way that he plays, the way that he acts, the way that he conducts himself. And I think that definitely in this window we've looked at him already, and I think discussions have been held with himself, with his agent. We decided that earlier on in this window we didn't have enough money to go for him if we were going to bring in other targets as well, and he wasn't considered a priority. But if Neymar goes, suddenly that could become accelerated, because I personally believe that we went in for Dembele earlier on this summer. I think Dortmund said to us he's going to cost around 80 million, 90 million if you want to sign him, and we simply said, look, we've got to go after other targets, the likes of Semedo, possibly Verratti, a midfield signing. We can't really afford to be spending this kind of money on Dembele. Well, if Neymar goes, suddenly we need another attacker. We need to go and spend our money on somebody, and Dembele seems the ideal player to do that. Like I said, I think he'll cost about 80 to 90 million euros. I think if you throw that money at Dortmund and say, here you go, here's the money, take it, they would go with it. Dembele's only been there for a season. It would make a massive profit for them. He's had an outstanding season, like I say, at Borussia Dortmund. He joined from Rennes at the start of last summer at a very low fee. He had a good season at Rennes before he went to Dortmund, so he's not a one-season wonder. He's 20 years old. He's been building season upon season and improving his game. Last season, in all competitions, he smashed 10 plus goals and assists in all competitions. He finished up with 10 goals and 18 assists in all competitions, and he is now a French international, having made 7 caps. Now, the important thing to note with this player particularly is the fact that everybody's saying, well, he's not a left winger, he's not going to come in and replace Neymar. Well, a few different things could happen with a lot of these players that could come in when we sign, if Neymar does go. Number one, we could possibly change formation. It is not necessarily set in stone that we're going to be lining up with the 4-3-3 next season. Valverde may do something slightly different. We could go with a 4-2-3-1. Now, I'm going to be doing lots of videos in the run-up to the season, after we've seen what he's going to do in pre-season, to look at the different systems and formations that Valverde might use. But I would certainly say that if Neymar does leave, I wouldn't say that we're definitely going to stick with that 4-3-3 with an out-and-out left winger. We may well go for a 4-2-3-1, which would mean we still had a player on the left, but it isn't necessarily a left attacking player. It could be a left-sided midfielder, a wide midfielder, where then you can look at a number of different players, which are going to come onto in this video, that could play that role. Also, Dembele is pretty good with both feet. He can play on the left. He did so for Dortmund a number of occasions last season. Admittedly, he's much better on the right. He is more comfortable on the right-hand side. Cutting in from there is exactly what he likes to do. Running down the wing on the right is exactly what he needs in his game. but if needs be, he can be on the left. But if it was my preference, I would play him in his preferred position, which would be on the right, bring Messi into the middle where he likes to play in a number 10 position where he sees a lot of the ball, and then bring in somebody else on the left-hand side. Because, of course, remember, we're getting 222 million euros. We're going to be able to sign more than one player, and that's exactly what this video is about. And that brings me on to my second target, Kylian Mbappe. Now, this is a very, very interesting one, because a lot of people will certainly say, no, he's being linked with Real Madrid, he doesn't want to come here. That's not necessarily true. He's linked very, very heavily with Real Madrid simply because of Zinedine Zidane. Mbappe is French, Zidane's a French legend, of course, so the link is there with Real Madrid, and no doubt they want him, but everybody in world football right now wants this guy. 18 years old, had a groundbreaking first season at Monaco, he was outstanding there, he broke through last season, 15 Ligue 1 goals, 8 assists as Monaco won the league against PSG, of course. They came in second, Monaco won the league, outstanding achievement for them. They also reached the Champions League semi-finals. Mbappe scored 6 Champions League goals on their way there, and like Dembele, he is indeed now a French international with 4 caps. Now, the important thing to note with Mbappe is a lot of people seem to think that he's this out-and-out goal-scoring striker. That's not really how it is. If you watched him over the course of the season, he does spend a lot of his time on the left wing. So it's quite interesting to look at this one, because he's a player that definitely does fit the kind of profile that would succeed at Barcelona. He can play on the left-hand side, and I would actually compare him, and I don't like doing this, but it has been said over the last few months really, Mbappe is quite similar to Thierry Henry in the way that he plays, in the characteristics that he has, in his physique as well. He's lightning quick, he's strong, he's powerful when he's on the ball, he's good with the ball at his feet, and in front of goal he is lethal with his finishing. Now, it's very important to note that, because of course when Henry came to Barcelona, he did operate primarily from the left-hand side. Now, Mbappe could certainly do that job for us. He could come in on the left, he can score goals, he's an inside forward if you like, but he can operate on that left-hand side. So with Neymar possibly departing, he's a left winger himself, of course. To replace him, Mbappe might not be a crazy, suggestion as it might seem. Of course, the problem is with Mbappe, though, like I said, everybody wants him, which means Monaco will be putting their price up to the absolute maximum. I would say it would take, in the crazy transfer market that we're in, about 150, 130 million euros. So this guy would not be cheap. Absolutely not. I'm not saying he's the best target. I would personally go with Dembele first and then see what's out there. But Mbappe does fit the profile that we're looking for, and he could slot seamlessly into that left wing forward position. So interesting to keep that in mind. The next target that I would say is Liverpool's Philippe Coutinho. It's very, very interesting, this one, because last night it came out that we apparently made a bid of around 80 million euros for Coutinho. Now, straight away, Liverpool jumped on that and they said, look, you're wasting your time. We're not selling him. So we can safely presume that I think in this market, Coutinho will be going for 100+ million. Personally, in my mind, he would not be the first player that I would go for. He can, though, like I said with Mbappe, play on the left. He's quite comfortable coming in from the left wing. He's right-footed. He can cut in. He can play as an inside forward on that side. 25 years old he is. 13 goals, 7 assists last season in the Premier League. Again, full Brazil international, 27 caps to his name. But what I would say as well about this is Coutinho is one of those players who has struggled with injuries over the past few years. He's not always been tremendously consistent. I think if you're paying 100+ million for a player, he needs to have real star quality or real star potential. Dembele, for me, is young. He's shown his potential. He's delivered on that last season with Dortmund. He's achieved outstanding results in Dortmund in the Bundesliga, which is a tough league last season. Coutinho, for me, is older. He doesn't have like 10 years left in him. There's not a lot more time that you can give him. Of course, there's a number of years you can still get out of a 25-year-old. What I'm saying is, if you're going to spend over 100 million on this guy, you want to know that he's going to be here for year upon year, performing at the highest possible level. You can't guarantee that with Coutinho. He does have inconsistency in his game, and he would cost a lot of money coming from Liverpool. So I would look personally at a different target from the Premier League, and that would be number 4, Christian Eriksen from Tottenham. Now, this is an interesting one because once again, he is a player that is primarily a number 10. He's an attacking midfield player, but he can play on the left. Now, this is what I mean, because if we do switch formations, if we do go to a 4-2-3-1, we're not sure who the midfield players are going to be yet, but if we do that and Messi comes to the 10, possibly Dembele goes to the right, somebody else comes to the left, they don't need to be a real attacking player. They could simply be a player that can play in wide midfield. Now Eriksen for me would fit that position perfectly. He's a player that does like to get on the ball. It's very, very comfortable in possession. He is fantastic in terms of his passing range and his passing ability, his vision. And I think on that left-hand side, once again, he could certainly do a job for us. 25 years old, much like Coutinho. 8 goals and 15 assists last season in the Premier League and 69 caps so far in his career for Denmark. And I just think Eriksen coming in from Spurs would definitely be cheaper than Coutinho. He would be, I would say, more reliable. Eriksen has performed, I would say, on a more consistent basis in the last few years for Tottenham than Coutinho has. He hasn't had as many injuries of late as Coutinho has. And I do say, I think it would be cheaper. And I think a lot of people say, dealing with Tottenham, Daniel Levy can be a very, very tough negotiator, which I agree with. So by no means would Eriksen be cheap. But I think you get him for at least, I would say 70 million maximum. That's what I would go with, 70 million euros. And I think we could get Eriksen. I do think that one would be possible. Now, like I say, not every player in this video is going to be a direct replacement for Neymar. The next 2 targets that I've got coming up are more midfield signings. But of course, we have been looking for a midfield player all summer long. The problem for us was we've struggled to sell people this summer, so we haven't really had the funds to pursue our midfield targets. So, with the Neymar money possibly being received, we could therefore go to Nice and say, give us Jean Seri. That is the 5th target, 26-year-old, just come off an outstanding season for Nice, where he scored 7 goals and made 9 assists. He's got 14 caps so far for the Ivory Coast, and I personally believe that Seri would suit our system down to a T. He's small, he's technical, he's very, very good on the ball, and I think if you threw 40 million euros at Nice and said, here's the money, take it, they would go with it, and Seri would be our player. The thing with Seri as well is, I don't think he would be on that high wages. Apparently he's a Barcelona fan, and he would very much welcome joining the club, according to Mundo Deportivo, and that was released yesterday. So interesting to keep that in mind. And then this is the last player that I'm going to mention today, and there's a few more players that I could go on to talk about. We're going to come onto those in a minute. Tiago, that is the final target, and I'll leave you with that name, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think that it's possible that he comes back to the club? Because if we get 222 million euros for Neymar, you could ultimately go to Bayern Munich, give them a blank check and say, whatever you want for Tiago, we'll give it to you. Because I think for about 100 odd million, you could get him back. Number one, is he worth it? Do you guys think that he's worth that amount of money? And number two, could you bring back a player? It would be like United re-signing Pogba. That's what it would be, because he left for just 25 million euros all those years ago. Of course, there was problems in his contract. He didn't play enough games, so his release clause went back down. But of course, you'd be paying massive amounts to get him back from Bayern now. He as well has suffered with a lot of injuries of late, just like his brother Rafinha has, unfortunate as it is. But he did enjoy a good season last season. 26 years old he is now, Tiago. 9 goals last season and 8 assists in all competitions. And of course, he's a full Spanish international. Is he worth massive amounts of money? Let me know down below. And of course, let me know across all these targets which ones you feel, if Neymar does go, we should be pursuing. By no means is Neymar definitely leaving. I know that he could, so we should start looking into possible alternatives and players that we could sign. Honourable mentions will go to players like Eden Hazard, Alexis Sanchez. You could name a lot of attacking players that we could possibly go and sign with this money, but I feel the players that I've just mentioned suit our system well. They're consistent, they're affordable, of course, with the fee that we're going to get, and I think it's very, very possible that we could sign any of those players that I've mentioned. So leave me your thoughts down below, guys. I'm very, very interested to hear your thoughts as always. I'll be coming up very, very soon with more videos. I've got the Barca versus Juventus preview coming very shortly. I will see you very, very soon. But until then, as always, Visca el Barça.